You haven't heard him the next. Well, that's how it goes. Right, well, I think I'll put it over now to Reg, VK3BQM to transmit with the group listening VK3AP.
Yes, no other takers by the sound of it there, Al. Good morning to all on deck. And thanks, Herb, for the station roll call there. So Jack follows me. And apparently we haven't got Ian on deck this morning. Let's see. It's unfortunate about the power supply there, Jack. Electro is available out this place that I go to, Stacey's. A lot of different voltage ratings, around the 18 volt mark, and I'm assuming that's the sort of power supply you're referring to. Has quite a stack of them out there. As a matter of fact, with your comments there too, Al, about electrolytics and that, I did notice out there he had in the order of up to about 100 mics, I suppose, in around the 350 volt mark too. So that's a bit of a handy thing to know. Hello, 4. Hello. Yes, I'll just do a check then. I'm running a bit late again this morning for some unknown reason. Trying to sit down and work out what went wrong here the other day with the linear. I still haven't worked out what's what with it. Let's see, the short walk for Jack this morning, the stumps and the concrete and what have you. There might be a little bit of subsidence, I suppose. The wire straps that come out of the top of the concrete stumps that have been nailed into the bearers on the floor, they may have a slight gap between them and each of the concrete stumps that will, slightest bit of movement there, but I shouldn't think it'd be any more than an eighth of an inch or so. Whether that'll make the difference in your door closing and windows and what have you, Jack, doubt it. But there is a certain amount of subsidence must take place if they've jacked it up. And if I remember right, I can't think now whether it's a brick veneer or whether it's a weatherboard house. I'm damned. I think it must be brick veneer, Jack. I can't remember now. Okay, Brian, with the Historic Radio Society and what have you there. And I didn't notice Jack's signal level, Herb, although I'm on the tele radio, I can get a pretty good indication, but I didn't take that much notice, so it could be down. And the next day I'll switch the 101 on and do a double check. All your comments there, Herb, and likewise, Al. Right, I better put it back over to you there, Jack, and get the ball rolling. I haven't done very much here other than a lot of work around the place. Trying to reorganize. I've been picking up all sorts of things like that have taken up a bit of time. I was doing something too, and I just can't think what it was at the moment. Right, for me it goes back across to you there, Jack. VK3 EB to take it with a pause in case anyone else wants to join. This is VK3 BQM.
VK3B returning to the group. VK3WYN are next in line. No other station heard on the changeover. Okay, all round. Strength-wise, Brian 10 over 9. Herb 15 over 9 this morning. Al is 10 over 9 and Reg is 20 over 9. So that's how I read you. I'm just looking at my aerial current on the RFM meter, and it's wavering about a bit. So that's the story there. Yes, I'd be interested to hear about the Historical Society, Brian. Not that I have any chance of getting to one, but it'd be interesting to know a bit more about it. I've got another note for you here, Brian, but I can't work out what it means. Oh, yes, I think over 12 months you might get a bit of minor settlement. The weight of the bearers, of course, goes on the stumps, and that could be subject to moisture fluctuations if we happen to get away from the drought and get a heavy rainfall, and the ground becomes saturated and there's a bit of movement of water through the ground. It's quite on the cards you get a bit of settlement that way. But when they take away the jacks on Wednesday and drop the stumps back onto or at least the bearers back onto the stumps, I suppose there wouldn't be much movement there, as Reg says, as long as they're all sitting on the stumps uniformly and not sort of spanning from 1 to number 3 and missing number 2. So if the bearers are sitting on each stump, well, that would take up the initial movement. Anyhow, I'll be able to report after Wednesday and tell you what the problems are. So I think you've got to expect a bit of cracking there, but we're going to redecorate inside in any case. So that'll come to pass sooner or later, but it might pay us to wait a while just to make sure everything's right. I couldn't close the front door last night, so I had about a 7-pound weight against it, and the fly wire door locked as well. But it's been fixed now, so a bit of a thump, fix that. So that's okay. Okay, Herb, on your general comments there and the letter writing and what have you. And likewise, Al, with the general comments about electrodes and one thing and the other. Now, it's a low voltage power supply, Reg, 12 volt, and it must have been something equivalent to a short in the output for it to start smoking away. But the oil leaked out, so I knew it had gone again, so I'll take it down to the garage on the wheelbarrow. And that'll fix that. Yeah, I'll take the lid off then and have a look, but I can reckon the electrode's gone. And I think it's the second last one. The last one I bought at the last Hamfest. I ought to buy them in 2s instead of 1s. The last one is in our power supply I built out in the garage, but that's very heavy. So it's better to leave that power supply where it is. And anyhow, I'll leave the power supplies for the moment. And okay, Reg, talking about the electrodes, a place where you go, you better give me a clue as to where it is, because I might have to fall back on that yet if I'm going to pick one up. Mind you, I've still got a very tall one in stock, But the ones that I've been using have been nice and nuggety, you know, small, with about 18,000 microfarads in them. So I don't know why the oil should have boiled, but they tend to boil if you forget to turn them off without a load. The set was turned off, so there would be no load on it. So that's what happened there. Anyhow, I might put in crowbar protection. Brian sent me a circuit there showing the crowbar protection, so I better put it in it. But I think I've got a feeling that I may have bought the components to make one up. And I dare say it can go in the power supply that has been playing up. So that's the story there. Okay, well, I'll put it over to you, Brian. Be interested to hear about the Historical Society. So a VK3WYN. Any further progress on the concrete for the base of that mast you're putting up? VK3WYN, VK3EB.
Yes, fine there, Jack. VK3EB and the group, VK3WYN returning. And good signals all round that time. Your signal level a lot higher there, Jack, on your second over. I haven't altered anything here, so all I can put that down to is possibly the path between us. Sometimes I do get a little bit of QSB on your signal, Jack, which is might be just that distance we've got there. So as I say, good copy on that second over. Now, in that sea, Herb, you followed me. Thanks for that report there regarding Jack's signal, Herb, and other stations. Note no radio work of any great consequence there yesterday, Herb, and also no VK4. So something I might be interested in. If you got time today at the end of the session, we can have a bit of a further chat about those readings of yours that you relayed yesterday, I think it was, regarding the SWR readings and the power readings for the antenna and the different frequencies in the 160 metre band there. So some of the stations on today, of course, Herb, haven't heard about that series of tests, so I'm not sure if you were going to re-mention those. But as I say, if you want to chat at the end of the session, that'll be good. And Al, good to hear you. Fine signal, Al, of course. And note your domestic chores seem to have taken precedence there over other things. I was hoping Ian, VK3ALZ, would have been on this morning, but no matter. I'll catch up with him when he comes on next. The reason for that comment there, Al, and the rest of the group, I was talking to Lindsay, a VK3YR, on 80 metres yesterday morning. Lindsay and a couple of other stations, all country stations, they have a net session once a week on Sunday morning there on 80 metres. So every so often I participate in that, catch up with all the news, and amongst all the comments there from Lindsay down at the Port Arlington Geelong Way, he was telling me some of the highlights of Ian's early days regarding home generators and CW on the bicycle and other things. Now, I hadn't heard about these, so no doubt you people on the net this morning have. So I'll mention that for when Ian's on, and I'll probably get some good comments there. It was all rather interesting. Reg, note your news, and note the linear and the fuses seems to be a static project at the moment there. So no doubt you've got that in mind for further attention. It's always better there, Reg, isn't it, to have that fuse on the low amperage side than the other way round. No use having the bent nail in the fuse holder when something goes wrong. So even if they do blow in the midst of a transmission, much better than the other way. Reg, that burning smell, or the araldite, heating araldite smell, I just wondered if you'd had time to find anything more out about that, if it was the RF choke or something else, or possibly you haven't done anything since we last spoke about that, which I think would have been around about Friday. And Jack, as I say there, Jack, your signal a lot better last time. Thanks for that 9 plus 10, which is my usual reading. And yes, interested with the comments there from both yourself, Jack, and the rest of the group about the possibility of slight settlement, or maybe not, of the house there. So yes, of course, that moisture in the ground, that has a bit of an effect too, doesn't it? I don't know if you're in a bad area there, Jack, for that. I don't think you're in a bad clay area there. There are some spots a little bit north of where I am, and they have quite a bit of trouble. They've got the clay deposits not very far down from beneath the topsoil. Luckily here we've got a fairly good sort of a base in the way of the topsoil and the underlying subsoil there. And you get the clay eventually, of course, but don't seem to get much movement here, thank goodness. You get 1 or 2 hairline cracks, of course, but that's to be expected. Now let's see, yes, well, first of all, on the mast there, Jack, and the rest of the group, no further activity there. It's all ready, waiting, poised for action. And the concrete chap has been around again, and the same thing happened, by the way. I was out all day Saturday at this historical radio get-together, and I noticed when I got home the concrete chap had been over the road, but there's still plenty more to do. So that'll happen in a couple of days there, hopefully. Let's see, yes, a report on yesterday's events there at the Radio Society. The group is known as the Historical Radio Society of Australia, and yesterday they were holding their 15th anniversary. That was held at Glen Iris, one of the church halls there near Burke Road, and I think, Jack, you would know it fairly well. Burke Road and Malvern Road, round about that corner. Actually, it's only about half a street away from Ted's home, VK3 Charlie Tango. I did call in there briefly, but there was no one home, so I was going to invite him around to the meeting there. Anyway, what this meeting does, it's an all-day affair, and in the morning, for about 2 or 3 hours, they have like a flea market. It's for all the vintage radios, equipment, valves, old journals and magazines, and some not so old, of course. Valve data books, they're much sought after. And a little bit of military equipment as well, but the bulk of the equipment, of course, is of the domestic receivers type of equipment there, and includes makes and models, of course, from Australia, New Zealand, and from around the world, and going way back to the 1910s, 1920s era there. So they have this flea market that goes for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, much looking and haggling, a bit like the Hammerfests, of course. They also have, concurrently with that time, they have a display of restored radios. They had one of the categories this year was the Little General Constructors Group display that had just about the whole range of the Little General valve radios there of years back, and very nicely presented, of course. They had a barbecue going there, and in the afternoon that was auction time, and that went must be about 3 or 4 hours that ran for. In fact, it was still running when I left, which was around about 6 o'clock or so. But certainly interesting to see all the old equipment there and what was happening to it as it was passed on at the auction. Quite a few collectors, of course, and people there from some of the more well-known retail shops, like the Resurrection Radio and the Nostalgic Radio and other places, and a lot of individual collections there as well. So it was a very interesting day, as I say. I met up with quite a few amateurs there. There were quite a few VK3s, 2s and 5s, quite a few people over from South Australia. So it's quite a well patronised event, and as I say, well worth visiting. What I'll try and do for next year's event, if I get advance notice of the date there, I'll let you know in perhaps a week or two beforehand, and if you want to come along, more than welcome. There's no entrance fee or anything like that. You just turn up and be prepared to spend a bit of time there. And as I say, most enjoyable. Anyway, I better pass it to you, Herb. VK3JO and the group VK3WYN.
Yes, right, nobody else heard. VK3JO replying. Yes, all okay, all very interesting. And right, let's see, where do we go from here? Al, you followed me. Oh, yes, okay, about Phil, and just understand involved there with the house chores, so that's fair enough. Hope everything goes well on Thursday with the doctors. And, yes, well, with the VK4 chap, well, I've only sort of recently started to contact him, and he does have this sked at Sunday mornings, 10 o'clock, with a VK5 and a VK6. And of course he's using a beam aerial. So for those, he's got his beam away from me. But in the past, the VK6 has been absent for a few weeks. I don't know the reason for that. Haven't heard him at all. And the VK5, well, it's impossible for me to hear him. Well, just a smattering of a voice there in the background, but I can hear a bit of the VK4 off the side of his beam. Anyway, I couldn't hear anything at all yesterday, so I gave a few calls with no negative results, so I gave it away. Didn't get back on air. Anyway, that's that. Reg, noted your comments there, and I presume that place in Croydon that you're talking about is the same place where you got the muffin fans. Quite interested to know that. Anyway, that's Reg, no doubt. Probably, Jack probably also knows the place too. So fair enough. Evidently these high voltage ones are getting harder and harder to get. Haven't done anything about checking the voltage of that power supply that's in the Heathkit set, where that electro has, well, I took the thing out to be able to check the wiring. And in the process, one of the wires has broken off the electrolytic, which doesn't have any marking on it to indicate what sort of a value it is, and of course being aluminium, just impossible to get a connection on it. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why I haven't done anything further about it. But I had to dismantle a little panel with the bulk of filter capacitors for the high voltage unit there. That is something that Joe had put on with their resistors, and I'd taken that out, so of course I don't want to switch it on and put power into the thing until I can put that back again. And I wanted to put this condenser back again, this electrolytic. There. Anyway, not to worry, but not knowing its exact value, and I think I shall have to put that little circuit board with all the other main capacitors back into place and get a measurement of the voltage there, so as to make sure that any replacement electro that I get will be adequate to do it. Bit of fiddling about. Right, anyway, what else there, Reg, about the electrolytics there, and also comments about the linear still haven't found the cause of the failure there. So, yes, that's sort of disconcerting and disconcerting, and I guess will be quite time-consuming to establish just what went wrong. And Jack, noted your further comments there. Thanks for the signal report. Your signal is just the same as it was before. I hadn't noticed any variation, as Brian had indicated, about last over being better than the first one. It all appeared to be quite normal, so you can't account for that. And right, note the power supply problem, 12 volt there, and the oil leak being indicative of a fault there in the capacitor. And certainly quite a trouble to go to, those heavy things, and you can't cope with them yourself, and needing the wheelbarrow to get it into the garage. Oh, well, gee, yes, and note all the other problems too about that. And I hope everything goes okay with the house and the reblocking, etc. there. You don't have too many problems, but no doubt you'll find out in due course. Bit of problem there with noise in the speech amplifier. Gave it the treatment. And Brian, oh, well, look, I won't be able to continue after the session there with the discussion about those things. I've arranged to get a haircut immediately after lunch, so that if you've got your 2 metre set running, I can give you a shout on that and have that discussion later on. Right, I don't know about Lindsay and this CW on the bicycle. It sounds quite interesting anyway. And you missed out on the concrete again, bad luck. And that's interesting about the Historical Radio Society. Sure, yes, it would be quite interesting to see the display and to see what goes on there. I don't know the little general sets that you mentioned, but note there were quite a number of amateurs there at all, and as I said, I believe that was the society where Ken 3&W disposed of a lot of his really ancient stuff, and I imagine that would be quite desirable from their point of view. Right, so that brings me back to where we started, I think. I don't think I've got anything further at the moment, so we'll continue listening and see what everybody else has to say. So take it away there, Al. Have say VK3AP with the group. This is VK3JO standing by.
Yes, thanks, Herb. VK3BQM next in line. This is VK3AP. And starting off with Reg's remarks. Yes, the high voltage electro, I won't say this position is serious, but they're very hard to get now, the high voltage working, and if you've got a spot there that you know is okay, well, so much the better. And okay about working on the front garden, I think you said. That's a good idea. Well, I hope to give that away for a little while because I've got all these extra duties and everything, and I don't like to rush things. It's a good enough excuse anyway. And okay about your fuses, 2 amp to 3 amp. That's what you've got to rely on. And moisture in the ground causes subsidence, that's right. Historical Society and so forth. I haven't got very much to talk about at the moment because I haven't gone very deeply into this. I think that's about all I've got now. It's about 10 to 12. So I'll put it on to you now, Reg. You may have something more interesting to talk about. I don't know if there's anything more now, so we'll leave it at that, I think, and put it over to you now, Reg. And failing that, or after that, you can refer back to Jack again. So VK3 BQM VK3AP and Group are listening.
Yes, thanks, Al. Very good there. And yes, no, I happened to be out there getting a muffin fan for the power supply, and I've upgraded the voltage tap to give me, instead of around the 2000 volt mark, to give me 2500 volt region. And because of this, the resistor that I've got, or a series of resistors that run across each capacitor as anti-surge resistors, they're inclined to be close to running warm sort of thing, and I thought I should put a muffin fan in there so as I can put the lid on that power supply in case anything drops down into it if I've got the lid off, because I didn't have ventilation, or enough ventilation sort of. So I went out there, and while I was out there getting the fan, I noticed, I went through what capacitors they had in the way of high voltage capacitors, which only go up to around the 300 to 350 volt DC working range. And they were, you know, today's modern miniature type of capacitors, in the order of up to 100 microfarads or close to it. I can't remember now just what the highest one was, but that's where I noticed those. And the place jack, for your benefit there, you've asked, is Truscott's, 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 Lacey Street, Croydon, 30 Lacey Street, Croydon. And they do have a very good range of capacitors, bulk size of capacitors, you know, in those heavy microfarad ranges that computers use, and all that type of stuff that go up around the 18 volt mark. That would be handy for your power supply. Such a fair range of them that there's different sizes physically and things like that that may assist you in where it has to go. The power supply has been functioning very good here, very well. It was the linear was drawing 2 amps, and I was using 2 amp fuses in it, which meant that after a while there was a tendency to pop a fuse, and I thought, well, I'm sitting right on the margin of it, I'll update it, I'll go up to 3 amp fuses, and I put 3 amp fuses in it, and I haven't had any fuses blow since. But I was operating on there the other day when Ian was last on, I think it was, about last Friday, last Friday, and I noticed that the linear had been running around the 150 watt mark, had dropped off to 80, and I thought, that's funny. And I had a quick glance over, and the meter switch position was on the grid current, and I thought to myself, well, that's normal. I wonder why it's dropped off, and at the same time I could smell this slight warm smell of something. I wasn't quite sure what it was. And then I glanced up again and realised that I'd dropped off to somewhere about the 40 watt mark. And I thought, that's dropping right off, so I turned it, I bypassed the linear and went straight through with the FT101, just used the exciter, and I turned the linear. As soon as you bypass a course, all the currents drop off to zero, and I just left it there for a few minutes while I finished the over, and then turned it all off. and while the one that follows me took over, I took the lid off it to see where the smell was coming from, and I could feel that the RF choke itself was quite warm. And I thought to myself, well, that's the araldite that's on it, and you couldn't hold your hand on it. It was unpleasantly warm. So I thought, well, that's the indication there. I continued with the session, and later on I had a look to see if I could work out what had gone wrong, and I'm damned if I still don't know what actually had gone wrong, but I seem to have dropped down in power. Oh, one thing that became obvious too was that the anode tuning had altered. The capacitor is quite stiff, and I had tightened up the movement of this anode tuning capacitor, and it being quite firm, I thought, well, that's good. It won't vary with any vibration or anything like that. And I checked all of these components that either I made or like that capacitor that I'd cleaned up and adjusted and everything prior to making the thing. And it's quite firm. It can't alter itself, but it was out of tune during this failure. It was a failure of it, and I thought, now why in the hell is that detuned? That tank circuit or the Pi network circuit is detuned. So I didn't persist with it because I couldn't spend enough time at that particular instance. So later on I come back and had a look, but I'm not sure what went wrong. Damned if I can prove. It's down the drain, output's down the drain to Billio, but I still don't know what the cause of it is. So that's as far as I've got, but it's got nothing to do with the fuses. It did have a couple of times earlier I popped a fuse because I was sitting right on the 2 amps of current drain from the power supply, and that's exactly why, because I only had 2 amp fuses in it. Running close to the margin, I prefer to pop a fuse, but I found that the 2 amp fuses wouldn't stay in it for very long, and that, later on, of course, I developed this other fault, so I still don't know what it is at the moment, and I think it's going to be a bit ticklish to prove exactly what's happened. So, that's the story so far, fellas. Right, for me, you've just got time there, Jack, a minute to go. VK3EB, I'd better say cheers in case I get the call before it gets round to me again. VK3EB, VK3BQM, cheers.
VK3WYN and the group VK3EB are returning. Yes, fine all round. The OK Brian on the historical radio society there, quite interesting. I certainly wouldn't have lasted the distance. An hour at these functions is about right for me now. By the time I have a look around the tables and perhaps go around twice, that's about it. Very interesting. I have been to one of their displays once before, some years ago, and Jeff 3AUX went also when I told him about it. Okay, Herb and Al, on your comments, and thanks for the info on the Truskets there. Yes, I have been there before. I went there once when it was about 105 in the shade, and I think it's got a metal roof, an iron roof, no lining or anything. And it was pretty hot, but I'll keep my eyes open if I get to the Hamfest Saturday week, which I hope I do get to, so we'll take it from there. Anyhow, catch you all tomorrow, all being well, so all things being equal, so VK3WY and YN and the group VK3B is now off and clear and saying morning to all our listeners. Cheers.
Yes, cheers there, Jack. VK3 Echo Bravo signing, VK3WYN returning to the group, and VK3JO to follow me. And fine copy from everybody last time round, and note all the comments there with interest. And yes, Jack, you certainly don't have to stay all day at these events, as we all know. Just pop in for half an hour and have a quick look or something like that. And but I find that once I get to these events, there's so much to look at, and you get talking to other people, of course, that the time goes so quickly there. It's quite surprising. And let me see, Herb, note your time constraints, Herb, haircut and whatnot there. So anyway, we'll catch up in due course, have a chat about those readings that you plotted. But actually, I wrote some of them down, and that seems not a bad sort of result you're getting at this particular frequency, Herb. So no, I don't think you'll be operating up the top end of the band there. Certainly not with the not with the 1825 crystal, and I think round about 1840. That's around about as far as they seem to operate, even on the sideband area. 1840, 1850 seems to be Dave there, VK3 ASE with his AM transmissions, and very rarely hear anything above 1850. I do have a listen there, of course, but round about this end of the band seems to be the spot for where the action is. So those readings, Herb, they seem quite good for this particular segment of the band. And let me see, yes, Al, likewise here, Al. Wish you all the best there for the medical situation for your good lady. Give her my regards, and from the rest of the net, of course, as I'm sure you do. So, yes, hope that all goes well. And the time does get taken up, doesn't it, with the domestic chores and such like, when you've got things like that happening. And Reg, yeah, I was listening with interest there, Reg, to your comments on the linear and the power supply. So be interested to hear more about that in due course. Talking of large valves, such as your one there, Reg, they had a beauty at this historical society meeting. It was not a 4-dash. It was a 4X500, I think it was. 500 was the important figure anyway. So I think that sold for about $10 or something like that. It wasn't a new one, of course, but I guess people could take a punt on that, like I've done in the past with a couple of those transmitting tubes. One of which I think most of you know is now in operation at Ross's location down at Corumburra, and his final tube there, the QB3 300, that was a $5 special at one of the White Elephant sales there a couple of years back, and as it turns out, works fine. But certainly interesting to see the different equipment at this get-together. Let me see, Jack's gone clear, and yes, I've just been doing a little bit of work on a crow during the last session overs, and trying to find a screw that matches a thread in the piece of alloy, and we all know what that job's like. 1,000 screws, but none of them the right one. So anyway, I shall persevere. The crow is a BWD, by the way. I think you've got one, Reg. This one is the 511. 511. It's a recent acquisition, and did a swap with someone else for something, and in quite nice condition. 5-inch job, of course. It's solid state and valve, one of those that sort of vintage, but very clean inside. So as I say, just trying to find a screw that will complete the screws that hold the cover on. There was just one of those missing, and that was all. So with that, I'll make this a final, and I'll pass it back to you there, Herb. Won't come back unless called. I'll say cheers to all, 7-3 to all our shortwave listeners, VK3JO and the group VK3WYN.
Yes, okay. VK3JO replying to the group. Right, all okay, everybody. Thanks very much indeed. And yes, Reg, that you followed me. That problem there with the thing, the fact that RF choke is getting hot burns, but suspicious of that somehow or another. So whether it's broken down in some way, it's a pi wound thing from memory, and whether there's anything there that's actually broken down, or whether the extra current there is causing it to warm up. It just makes me wonder. In fact, I wonder with my problem of low power output on this, whether the RF choke in this is adequate for 160 metres. It not designed for 160 metres, and if that's a little bit perhaps not quite enough microhenries in it, or millihenries or whatever, it could be the reason I'm losing a bit of power there. Right, with the previous test that I've made with this thing to check resonance unloaded, it did appear on the higher frequencies that we'd be getting a lower standing current with no load. Right, let's see, Jack, anyway, okay about all that, Reg, and the 3 amp fuse, fair enough, the choke warm, anode tuning, off tune too, well, that sort of perhaps indicates that there's a problem there with with that choke. Okay, Jack, yes, all right, well, I don't know whether you're still listening, but noted everything there too, and thanks for the session this morning, your contribution there. Catch you again tomorrow morning. And that's right, well, yes, it was Al who followed me, really, so noted your comments there, Al, too, but didn't make any notes, so hope everything goes well with Phil and the doctor, and maybe he'll be on tomorrow. I suppose a lot will depend on the how well you're keeping up with the household chores. Yes, right. Interesting there, Brian, too, about the tables. Yes, well, with those, if you care to, we could go into a bit of discussion there, but it rather looks to me as though I seem to be getting the best SWR at the higher frequencies, and in fact 1840 appeared to be where I was getting an antenna current of approximate, or an antenna power that was very much the same as the power into the dummy load. So it rather looked as though that one was possibly an indication that the amount of inductance I've got in the thing is a bit too not quite enough. So it might pay to try and move that tap up about half a turn or a turn at the most, and see what the effect is there. Anyway, strangely enough, on that one, the field strength meter was down, but then probably I should have adjusted that, and but I can't watch what I'm doing while I'm adjusting it, since the pickup point for that is up the yard. So anyway, I did make a note at 1850, and the field strength meter was reading 25, but later on I went up the yard and just gave that a little bit of a tweak, and found it was reading then 31. So that could probably account for the lower field strength meter reading on 1840. Right. Anyway, enough of that. So I'll catch you later. All have a nice day, and thanks very much for the session. VK3JO is now concluding with the group. Just listen for any final comments before closing. So cheers all.
Yes, thanks, Herb. VK3AP welcoming the group again. and I've got very little to talk about. Still on these high voltage capacitors, Reg, there's a very strange thing when we had just simply had the electrolytics, and we used to get them from a place in town. I always remember this. I was searching for low voltage working ones, and I was suddenly told by someone, I don't know who I was talking to, that the high voltage working ones, and I went to the shop in, I think it was in Swanson Street or something like that, and I don't know, they seemed to think I had all the voltage I needed in the capacitors, and I said, no, these are not good enough, got to be high voltage working ones. And she said, oh yes, we've got them here, that's right, they're the ones you want, 63 volts. And the capacitors were miles down from that. So I don't know what happened after that, but I appreciate your problem there too, Reg, when you had to change 2 amp to 3 amp fuses, and also the tuning capacitor was tightened and had a different reading in another spot. So your power fell from 140 watts to 85 watts. And okay, about the visiting the Hamfest, and I quite appreciate, Brian, what happened. You just can't get away, and you try to say, well, I'm going to have an early night now, going to get away, but you can't, and there you remain. I don't think there's anything else now, and I'll be QRT, so I'll say 73 and cheers to everybody, and I'll put it back to you, Reg, if you're still about. If not, well, you'd better take it, Brian. So VK3BQM to transmit with the group listening. This is VK3AP saying cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Yes, thanks, Al. Just had the call for lunch, so I won't hold it any longer. I just, while you had your over and Herb had his over, I pulled the front off, and I've just been measuring the filament supply and everything, just in case. I put in some different wiring when I've been fiddling with the power supply and that. I've bought some nice heavy wire from out at Truscott's. The multi-strand type of wire, fairly heavy duty, and I thought to myself, gee, I better check and just see if that's affected the filament voltage at all, because as you know, the fair amperage that these things run at, the filaments are 70 odd watts or something on its own, that I may be getting a drop there, and maybe the performance of the tube has dropped off with a lower filament voltage, but it's at 4.9 volts and staying in that region, and that's very low drop in tolerance, so it should be quite okay. It's only 0.1 of a volt. 0.1 of a volt, so I can't see anything that's wrong there, but I don't know, it's got me beat. Everything looks all right, and unless the tube for some reason or other, I can't see if it had a parasitic running, that it wouldn't draw more current, and it was sitting very low in current drain compared with what the tube's capable of. So the RF choke here is supposed to be in the order of 1 millihenry. Well, it's 750 microhenries, which is slightly underrated, but and I can't even work out why it would have got hot the way that it did either, so it's got me beat. Right, I'd better say cheers. Cheryl's waiting for lunch, so look forward to the next time. Have enjoyed this morning's contact as usual, everyone having been signed on last on the list, so cheers from VK3 BQM.
Reg, just before you go, what model is the Crow of yours, Break?
Oh yeah, that's terrific, that Crow you mentioned too. Mine's a 506, so yours is a later one than mine. You may, what's mine, a 5 meg? I think yours might be the 10 meg. Oh, I can't remember now whether it's a 10 meg or a 5. Anyway, it's a 506, Brian Blake.
Oh, right, yes, I know the 506, and yes, this one, it's either 10 or 20 meg. I didn't get any paperwork with it. That was the reason for the quick call there, Reg, in case yours was... Is yours a mixture of solid state and valve brake?
No, mine's all solid state, and come to think of it, it's 10 meg, I'm pretty sure. All solid state, Brian Blake.
Oh, right. Oh, very good. Yep, I'll check around and find someone who's got the paperwork for it. Always like to have the book with the equipment. It's very clean inside, and you'll all be pleased to know I found the one screw in 1,000 which matches the thread. So there we are. Thanks there, Reg. Cheers, Al. Cheers, Herb. VK3WYN signing and going clear.
Yes, cheers, Brian.
QM and FAL, and no doubt one or two to follow. Morning, Reg, and morning, Don. It's a very nice day today, sunshine and sunshine on the house next door and blue sky. I went out for a walk and went round the block, posted a letter, and I got back, I wasn't too cold. Mind you, I was well rugged up. So that was very good. I'm running about, on the peak, 600 milliamps. 600 milliamps of RF, so that's very good indeed. And the power meter shows, if I linger on a syllable there, it goes up to 60 watts. So around about 40 watts on the peaks, I'd say. About 40. So that's the story there. I had a look at that set yesterday, the DX394, Reg. It runs on 240 volts AC. I don't know whether it's got any facilities for running on batteries too. It may have. I did have a look at the manual, but only a fairly quick look. I couldn't linger too long. And it's all, and the fine-tuning control, I looked that up in the handbook, will vary the pitch on the CW notes. So it sounds either like a clarifier or a BFO. So that's what it does, but you need to have a look at the circuit to see what the precise function is. But anyhow, it looked very good, and the physical size is about 9 inches by 9 inches by about 4 inches high. So it's got some volume associated with it, and it weighs a pound or pound and a half, or perhaps 2 pounds kilo. I'm not quite certain what it weighs, but that's an estimate anyhow. It's got a 50 ohm UHF jack on the back and 2 RCA sockets, one for high and one for low impedance. No doubt it's got something else that I haven't mentioned, but anyhow, I looked as hard as I could. 100. I said, when your next sale is on, and I said, you drop the price 100, I said, you'll get a few customers. So he was quite receptive to what I said about that, as to whether the price was too dear, mainly because I suppose he hadn't had any sales. So that's what happened there. I had my eyes tested yesterday, and very exhaustive testing it was too. And it looks as though I'll have to get new glasses. And the testing took about, well over half an hour anyhow. Well over the half hour. So I've got to make an appointment to go and see them again next week. And both lenses have got to be altered, so we'll see how we go there. Okay, well, that's about the news at the moment. So any other questions, Reg, on the 394, I'll do my best to answer for you. So VK3BQM and the group, VK3EB.
VK3JO.
Yes, right. VK3EB, myself, VK3FAL, and now VK3JO, in that order, Herb. Good morning to you, and good morning, Don and Jack. This is VK3BQM. Okay, Jack, on being brave and getting out there in the cold this morning for your walk. I've only been out as far as feeding the birds. It's a bit on the nippy side for me. When I only do the one good walk during the day, so I'll do mine about 2 o'clock. I think the forecast was for around about 2 o'clock for the maximum temperature today, whatever it does get to. But note you've been out there and it wasn't too bad. Excuse me, mate. Okay, on the 600 milliamps of RF, PEP of 40 odd watts there, and also about that DX394 jack. Shell was down to Campwell today, and I've asked her if she'd mind popping in and see if they had any brochure on it at all, or if she could get a new catalogue off them. You've probably asked for both, and by the sound of it, weren't able to procure either, I take it. But, okay, on the data on that 394, the last catalogue I have from Tandy's is 94, and I could do with an update. I remember from that last one I bought a Sharp programmable calculator, 3-line display, and solver a solver program built into it. Quite a handy calculator. I really like it because you can process your way through some, and at the same time you've got a 3-line display readout as you progress through it, and you can look back and see if you've made a mistake anywhere, which is very handy compared with a lot of the calculators of today that only they give you one line readout, and once you press the answer or the progress button to go on with the next part of your sum, you've lost the details that you've just put in. And if you don't check it line for line in a lot of instances, or entry for entry, you can finish up in very misleading strife. That's why I prefer this one, a bit dearer than the average, but a very good calculator. So I enjoy having a look at what's what with their latest, calculators and the likes of that sort of thing. And I would be interested in that receiver, so if Shell can do any good down there, well and good, I'll enjoy looking through it. Note the eye test there yesterday too, Jack, and when you say you need lenses, both lenses, I take it you mean for spectacles, not for replacement of the lenses that you have in the inserts in your eye. And a half-hour test there means he must have been fairly thorough, and be interesting to have it so thorough instead of just getting a sort of a brush off from the other fellow you've been going to, from the specialist there. Well, I did a funny thing yesterday. Or when I say funny, it's something a bit different. Some years ago, I put together what was referred to as a Freemadine 4. This is a VHF type of receiver using super het mixer and super regenerative IF detector stages. And I'd forgotten all about it, actually. It's been up in the wardrobe for quite some time. And I thought I spotted it there. I was looking for what valves I might have had that I could put something together with as a bit of an amusement source of interest, sort of. And I got this down and I put it on, and I got interested in playing with it. I intend to try and refresh my memory as to just what's what with it, and see if I can dip some of the coils and make sure where the IF is running and frequency-wise and what have you, and have a bit of a play with it. So that's what I've been fiddling with in the spare moments of the cooler weather. I will be going out. I'd like to give the windows a bit of a clean this afternoon, and a bit on the grubby side. If I can, I'd like to clean the outsides. Right, now for me it must go across to you there, Don, with a pause in case we've got any other takers. VK3 FAL to take it in the morning coffee group session. Good morning to our listening friends. This is VK3 BQM.
No other takers. VK3JO and the morning coffee group. VK3 FAL returning. Oh, well, good morning, Jack, Reg and Herb. All comments noted. All good signals this morning. Jack, you're coming in at plus 15. And Reg, you're at plus 35. I haven't got you came in too quick for me, Herb. I didn't have a chance to read. Yes, your eye test, Jack, something I've got to do, or that, and get a replacement set of teeth. They seem to wear down, but I noticed with the sort of bifocals I've got, just then to read the S-meter, it was one of those awkward situations that It was just at the wrong sort of location with the division in the between the near sight and the long sight on the bifocals, and it was extremely hard to read. The same too with the barometer. Yes, it makes it a little bit awkward, but anyway, so one of those things I've got to do. Right, okay, temperature nice, pleasant 14 degrees in the converter glass house. It was only 2 first thing this morning at 5 o'clock. Noise is S8 as usual. SWR is 1. Yes, the reflected needle is not even moving, which is very good. Barometer is 1,037.5 actually. It's that's why I had trouble reading it. I can see quite easily the 1,030, 1,040 and the black spot which marks the halfway, but the other divisions are black on a gold, and you've got to get a sort of a reflection point of view where the light reflection from it will accentuate the little black division with the point of the pointer, and it's a little bit awkward. Yeah, anyway, so that's 37.5. It's apparently been the highest the barometer's been for quite a long while. That's why we get the fine weather and the very nasty mornings. When I went out this morning at 7 o'clock up the centre through there, actually the ground felt very cold as you walked on it, and I said, "Oh, this is no good." So I sort of hopped along very quickly and sort of tried to keep my feet warm that way. But I noticed in the centre it's not too bad. But a few of the people I know there and nodding acquaintance with said the same thing. They can't get their feet warm. Anyway, one of those things. Slight little problem this morning. I thought, things are not good. It wouldn't load below 3.1 SWR. And I said, this is not good enough. The noise was way down. I said, no, the noise hasn't vanished. Well, what happened, though, with a little bit of investigation, the connection I got for the long wire to the external earth system is via a coaxial connector, and then the coaxial lead comes back into the station itself. What had happened was that the long wire had, again, the little problem I had a little while ago, was what I think I first checked, the insulation on the long wire, because it's quite loose in the end of the coaxial connector, it seems to be slightly sharp on that edge, and it seems to chafe through. So I thought, right, that's one little job I've got to do. I've got to come up with some different arrangement for that. So I think I'll make a few solder joints and a bit of insulation and see if I can get around it that way. But anyway, apart from that, that's about all's happened here. Oh yes, Jack. Yesterday I had to go down to Dandenong. That's why I wasn't around. And wandering around there, I turned around the corner and I thought, Tandy. There was a tandy I didn't even know was there. So I bolted and picked up one of those brochures, and I asked the chap, "You got to sit there?" And he said, "Oh yes." And went back in the storeroom, brought one out, and looked at it as you described. And he said, "You're interested?" I said, "Well," I said, "the price is very high, isn't it?" And I said, "No." I said, "I think you'll find it's way overpriced for most people." He said, "Oh, it's surprising." He said, 2 or 3 people have said that. So I think he was rather looking forward. He might have thought he had a sale, so I didn't sort of take too much of his time, so I just left him to it. Someone else fortunately came in, and he went over to attend to them, which is a good opportunity for me to depart. But it looks quite neat. He said, Jack, it's 240 on the plug. He said it will run on 12 volts. He says it's designed for car battery type thing. But I didn't have a chance to, as he seemed, I didn't want to disappoint him too much and have a bit of time looking at the actual thing itself and the manual and so on. But that's as much as I know about it. Anyway, it's interesting, as I said, I know there's a tandy now. I know there's one down at Brighton, and that's very awkward to get to. There used to be one in the city way up the top of Elizabeth Street, but I don't know what happened to that. It's gone. Anyway, one of those things, right. Over to you, Herb, VK3JO to transmit, VK3FAL, and the morning coffee group standing by.
VK3 Alpha Lima
Zulu. Good morning, all, including Ian, VK3ALZ. This is VK3JO replying, and apologies for the late arrival. I've been hanging out my washing. So
like most other people, I've got cold fingers and cold feet. But otherwise, quite warm. Okay, Jack, I came in there when you were talking about Tandy and that set. Oh, incidentally, Ian, you'll follow me and put it back to Jack. And we also have Reg BQM. And you must have been hearing something of Don 3FAL. So that appears to be the group. Yes, right. So anyway, let's see. I note the Tandy set there and the eye test, etc. So hope everything will go okay there. With regard to that Tandy set, I heard you talking about it this morning, and you were wondering about receiving FM on it. Whether you could or look, the BFO won't help you there at all. What might help would be the slope of the IF curve there, or sensitivity, or gee, wait a minute, what's the selectivity curve? If you tune slightly off the centre frequency and get onto that, you might be able to copy FM on it. I know it does work with the with the 2 metre setup that I used years ago before we had FM, and just using that occasionally, and by tuning to one side or the other of the carrier, I can resolve the FM quite okay. Right, Reg, yes, note your comments there about catalogue and computers. Sounds quite interesting there, and so on. So that other Freemadine 4 receiver, I haven't heard of that. I don't know what it comprises of, but still sounds an interesting project, and good over with the window cleaning. Hope you can get onto that okay. And Don, yes, you've been in trouble there with teeth and bifocals, etc. So let's hope you can overcome all that problem again. Certainly cold temperature this morning. I think the thermometer in this area was 3 when I first looked at it. I didn't join in with the 2 metre group this morning. I was a bit later than usual getting up, and I wanted to get the breakfast over and done with so I could take advantage of the fine sunny day to try and get as much of this washing dry as possible. Been hanging on to it since the the weekend, waiting for a day when I might probably get the stuff dry. Yes, and yes, note the problem there with that long wire aerial, and certainly requires a bit of work there. And also comments there about Tandy and that receiver. Yes, right, nearest Tandy, he's probably the nearest bits and pieces store I've got up there in Forest Hill. But he doesn't seem to have anything like the range of the of Dick Smith or Rod Irving, which is only a little bit further away anyhow. So I don't patronise him greatly, and he doesn't send me any catalogues. I think they used to at one stage, but I didn't buy enough from them to warrant that, so I don't get any. Yeah, right, anyhow, that's all fine. And my activity, well, I missed out on a walk yesterday morning because of the fog. I thought it's not the best to go inhaling that concoction, but I did go out in the afternoon. Right, so anyway, that's that. But then I got onto the 813 rig and managed to install that oscillator coil underneath the chassis. Testing there, it may have improved the stability of the crystal oscillator on switching on. In the set. So it looks as though I'll have to do some drastic alterations to the design of it, and perhaps some shielding and so on in between the stages. I was looking through what valves I had there, trying to decide what would be the most suitable for the crystal oscillator as separate from the 6L6. Came across a couple of triode power pentodes, and I was wondering whether the use of those would be worthwhile, much more compact than the present setup with the full-size 6L6, it's the oscillator. But realised that those miniature valves, the sockets are very small, and is the spacing there adequate for use as RF? Big question mark. Haven't had any experience with using them before, but so anyway, may have to get the separate oscillator and try it. But that's a bit in the future. I propose to make a few more tests anyway, and see what happens with different values of screen dropping resistor to get the voltage there down to what's specified in the book, and also the grid resistor to try and get the grid current to somewhere near what's specified in the book. So a bit of experimenting to do before I finally decide on what's happening. Right, over to Ian, VK3ALZ, and trust everything's well with you there. I think you were going for a medical test, so hope everything went well, whatever. VK3ALZ, with the group standing by. This is VK3JO.
No, Marcus. VK3 Alpha Lima Zulu to the group. Morning all. A little bit late, not bad. Got through reasonably quickly. Everything went okay, Herb. No problems there. She changed the medication. Anyway, I feel much better today. Felt really lousy yesterday, but feel much better today. Didn't have a bad night. A lovely day outside. They're really glorious. So it's a good time to be outside there. Nothing really to report. Haven't done my shopping yet. Well, so I'll have to go down the street after the session and get the paper and the milk, whatever. Must have been a pretty cold night, I think. And I came out and looked outside. It was still heavy dew on the grass there. And that was, what time was that? 8:30 or something, I think. I don't remember. Might have been a little earlier. Yeah, I was almost reading Don there with the headphones. I would have been able to read Don, but I don't know where they are. It's somewhere in the shack. I'll bring them over, put them on the bench here. There seems to be not a bad signal there now, Don. You've improved it quite a bit. Didn't come on last night, didn't watch the TV, I just sat inside, eventually went to bed. Oh, the cricket, that's right, the cricket, yeah. The cricket was a washout, I think, by the time I went to bed, 11:30, there still hadn't been any play, so it didn't look like there was going to be any play. I was just listening on the radio. So that's a bit of a disappointment there for the cricket lovers. Anyway, the ABC had an interesting show there, so I listened to that. I haven't heard Reg or Jack, so I don't know what the situation is there. Okay, you're right, it is there, Herb. Yeah, one of the best tubes of the lot, if you're trying to conserve space, is the 12BY7. It's a very good RF driver. Doesn't need much drive, and it's pretty efficient. And in the old days when I was building valve rigs, I always used the 12BY7 as a driver. Usually the setup was I had a sort of a mobile AM rig for the vehicle, covered 160, 80 and 40, and the oscillator, of course, is a VFO, a clap type VFO or something like that, and using a, I don't know, 6J5 or a 6C4, something like that, from memory. And the 12BY7 driver driving a sweep cube, 6DQ6 or something, 6DQ6 probably. That worked quite well. Make a good oscillator too, the 12BY7. We have bags of drive from that for the following stage. That's what I'd sort of be looking at, something like a 12BY7 driving a oscillator, driving a your existing 6L6. You'd have to alter the circuitry around the 6L6. That should more than drive that thing. But you may not have any. They get very, very scarce as hens to eat, actually, 12BY7s, and I gave a couple away. Whether I've got any left or not, I don't know. Guy up the street here wanted a couple. Anyway, that's enough of that. So I better pass it on. There. Maybe we all should get out in the sunshine, enjoy the beautiful sunshine, warm there. I haven't. Brian's not on, I don't think. No, I haven't had a chance to listen on 2 metres, so I don't know what propagation's like there, but it should be good. A very big high, 1036 it was. Centre that high, right in the middle of Bass Strait. I think it was. And that was yesterday. How fast it's moving, of course, is the big thing. A VK3 EB to take it in the group. VK3 Alpha Lima Zulu.
A VK3 BQM and the group VK3EB. And good morning to you, Ian, VK3 ALZ. Yes, Reg, I'll have to get new glasses. That's what I have to do. And they just even up my eyes sort of thing, but they're they're a bit out at the moment, so that's the story there. Yes, a pretty good modulation at the moment. It's kicking well up. And I'm sitting on about 500 milliamps going up to 600. So that's good too. Signal strength all the usual, all the same. And okay on the tubes for the oscillator, Herb. Well, you can take Ian's advice there. Alternatively, if you've got about a 68 ARRL handbook, you can have a look in there, and they usually list the oscillators and what have you. So have a look in the handbook. I missed a bit of your over, Don. My wife was in talking to him, and that was not any help whatsoever. So I missed the temperature in the glass house, and I missed on what you were saying about Tandy. You said there was one at Brighton which was difficult to get to, and there used to be one in the city, and that's all I got on the your particular over, I think. So if you wouldn't mind repeating anything of importance that you would like me to know, repeat by all means. Okay, Ian, I'm getting through the appointment early. That's good. And okay, Reg, on the lawns, today might be the day. I've got to cut the fellow next door's Bloody Mary, which is starting to come over the fence, so I'll have a go at that after lunch and cut that back and throw the bits over the fence, over onto his side. So he's a nuisance. He's got the stuff growing all over. It'll be at his front gate shortly. And I'm looking forward to that too. So, so that's the story there, but he's neither use nor ornament, as my father used to say, but he was mainly speaking about me at the time. So that's the score there. Okay, Reg, I think I covered all your points there. Yes, well, it may be possible, Herb, to resolve the FM with the DX394 using either the CW1 or CW2 position. That's broad and narrow CW. And that plus the fine-tuning might just give the answer to resolve FM. It's only a matter of being able to resolve it occasionally, not all the time. So that could be interesting. Anyhow, what I did laugh about was when I suggested to the fellow that that if they knocked 100 off the price, they'd get it to a couple of customers. And he took that quite well, and he thought I might have a point there, so we'll have to wait and see. So I'll keep my eyes on the place anyhow. The only thing Shirley will be able to get is a flyer off the counter, Reg. There's only one handbook for the sets, and they wouldn't be able to part with that. So that goes with the apparatus. It also has a whip antenna apart from the other provision for external antennas. And I didn't go into the power supply except that it does work off 240, so it's got an internal transformer and so on. So you don't have to have an adapter or anything, you just plug it straight into the 240. So that's okay. You might have to keep that plugged in too, same as I do on my scanner, so you don't lose your frequencies. So that may apply, I don't know. You've got to study the manual. And I studied it as far as the fine tuner was concerned, and that was about it. Okay, it looks like a nice weekend coming up, doesn't it? So I've forgotten what the long-range forecast was. I'll have a look at the news tonight. So I'll put it to you, Reg, VK3BQM, and the group, VK3EB.
Right, thanks, Jack. And sorry about that. And good morning to Ian. Good that you're able to make it back, Ian. Also appreciate the fact that you did make the effort to get back to join the session, knowing that you'd have to go back again this afternoon or later after the session. And it's good to hear that you're feeling better too today than you were yesterday, Ian. I was thinking you'd have had an early night last night, but then you said 11:30, before you went to bed with the cricket being a washout. And, I was in bed about 10:30 at the latest. That seems to see me in bed nowadays of an evening, unless of course it's quite a warm night and something special on. But I put my blanket on and somewhere about the 10 o'clock mark and get into a hot bed. Gee. Let's see. Note the further comments there from Don on the Tandy setup there, and that it's also a 12-volt operation as well as 240 volts. That the receiver, and that it also has a whip antenna from Jack there. Yes, that earlier scanner of yours, Jack, that has no memory backup supply, that's very awful. That the fact that you unplug the thing or turn it off or have a power failure or something and all your memory goes, that's not on. I'd be inclined to want to put something in there to hold the memory in the way of a little cell. 14 degrees now in the glass house. Well, the sun shining there must have warmed it up a bit there, Don. Note that it was only 2 degrees earlier in the piece there. Yes, I noticed yesterday, just walking past, we have a barometer in the back porch area, and I noticed it was up above the 1035 mark. I was thinking to myself, gee, that barometer's going up, but I didn't stop to actually read exactly what it had got to, but usually once it gets above the 35, it sort of catches my eyes as I walk past, so it would have been interesting to have had a listen round on 2 metres earlier today. The ground being cold with your feet. My walk, I had a little kip after lunch, and I got up at about 2:15 and went for my walk somewhere just after that. But I should have got my feet warmed up first, because I had a cold feet walk even yesterday at the warmest part of the day. So I'm not going to make that mistake again today with the poor circulation that I've got. There's nothing worse than walking with cold feet that you can't feel, sort of thing. It's very annoying. Plus the fact it makes your feet sore too. I certainly wouldn't have felt like hanging out washing this morning, Herb. Note the cold fingers and cold feet doing so. And that you had a walk yesterday afternoon. Yes, I've made that a point, that this cold weather to walk in the afternoon. Thank goodness these mornings haven't got any wind about or breeze about, because if you did have to go out, it'd certainly make it a lot colder for sure. If the breeze sprung up at the time you went to go for your walk. Note you've got the oscillator core under the chassis there now, Herb, and concerned with the mini valve to use. Well, I would say you'd need to use it to drive the 6L6, wouldn't you? And your 6L6 in to drive the 813. What Ian was saying, the 12BY7, that drives the finals in the 101 series, a 12BY7A, and it is quite a good oscillator, there's no doubt about it. After all the time I've had my 101, I have replaced the 12BY7 with a new one, and I was feeding, I can't remember now whether I actually read it with a with a RF meter or whether I just looked at it on the Crow, but I had no difference in putting a new one in the place of the one that's been in my set for quite some years. It hadn't deteriorated. It runs under ideal conditions, and a very good solid valve, there's no doubt about it, as Ian's referring to having used them before. Oscillator cum RF driver. What else was there? Jack, listening to your signal, the modulation is very good and strong on it. I thought I'd better switch the 101 on and just have a look and see what you were putting out as far as my estimator readings this morning on your signal. You're an S9 plus 25 on carrier with a very strong upward modulation to plus 30 over a 9, so that was very good. Note the creeper cut back there again, Jack. And other than that, I haven't made any further notes. So for me, it must go back across to you there, Don. I was wondering whether you managed to get a catalogue from that shop yesterday, Jack, as well as that flyleaf. I'd like to keep an update if I can on their catalogues, and I've got Shirley asking for one there this morning, but I haven't had one since back 94, so there you are. Right, for me, across to you there again, Don, VK3 FAL to take it. This is VK3 BQM.
With the pause, no other takers. Right, VK3JO in the group, VK3 FAL returning. Good morning, Ian. Right, okay, Jack. Yes, at the moment the temperature's changed around quite a bit. The sun's come up sort of through the roof, or coming through the roof. It's now a pleasant 19 degrees. Noise is S8, SWR is 1. Barometer my end is 1,037.5. The relative humidity's gone down from 74% down now to 57%. Sky clear, not a cloud anywhere, so which is good. Right, Jack. Yes, I had a good look at that building under construction around from the stepdaughter's place. As you said, there's enough angles in it to provide the necessary buttressing. There'd probably be no more than, I suppose, at the most, 4 metres, which would be the old 12-foot sort of thing, before there's a bend, sort of making a sort of 2 quarters of a room type of thing. Then there's a bit of a front entry, then a garage and so on. So they've introduced all the bends in it to provide the buttressing. It's a very funny arrangement. It's 2-storey in brickwork in some places. Other places, it's because of the, shall we say, the one room juts out below the one above. There's brick on the first part, and then with the hips going back up into the wall, what's left on the second-storey wall on that particular part, they seem to be covering with what I would assume, or appear to be rather, the fibro cement sheeting. There's very little of it, but it seemed odd. I looked at it, and the chap who was putting one part there was putting that blue insulation material on top of the studs, on the external side of the studs, but unfortunately it didn't handle whatever this sheeting material was. But it looks all very nice. So that was that. Yes, no washing, I've done that, put it out. It's all very nicely, sort of very little breeze at the moment. But like everything else, the washing built up over the week, and I've got to put a lot through the dryer later on, get rid of it all that way. If we find that around about this time, unless there's a very strong wind, it just doesn't dry. Well, the result is we sort of get smothered in sort of dampish washing. Anyway, one of those things. Right, that particular Tandy thing, it's very interesting in the brochure. They sort of say now save 200. They've already knocked 200 off the price, and looking at the price, what it was almost 600. It was rather expensive in any case. I'm not too absolutely sure whether you could get FM on it. Probably you could, Jack. It's got a lot of funny things on the keypad, which I sort of can't quite read from this flyer. But it's apparently it works on the band switching arrangement. 120 metres, 90 metres, 78 metres, 60 metres, 40 metres. So presumably and it was up and down arrows, and so presumably the coverage is achieved that way, much like this thing here. Actually, I found out yesterday, and I'd never realised it. This receiver will actually scan. The only snag is you've got to keep pressure on the little up and down button, but it does eventually scan, and a little gizmo pops up at the bottom with the scan name flicks. That comes on flicks. And there's a little arrow showing which way you're scanning, and it's very neat. Okay, enough from me. Your time's getting on a bit too. I'll say 73s on this one. I'm not absolutely sure what's going to happen, but as it's a very nice day, it looks like I've we'll have domestic duties piling up very, very rapidly. So I'll say 73s. I'll see you all further down the log somewhere. And I'll pass it over to you, Joe, VK3JO to transmit VK3FAL, and the Morning Coffee Group standing by.
VK3 Whiskey Yankee November.
Acknowledge 3WYN. Look, have a say there, Brian, and put it back to me. And if you've got a noise in the background, the chap next door is using a saw. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks there, Herb. VK3JO and the group. VK3WYN making a late start. So, good morning all. I have heard yourself there, Herb, of course, and the vacuum cleaner. I've heard Don and a little bit of Ian's over. So, who else is on the net? Good morning to all, and greetings to listeners as well. And the sun is shining in Waverley, you'll be pleased to hear. A bit different from yesterday, which was, it was still a thick fog here, round about this time of the day. But quite a sharp start to the morning. In fact, I was listening around different bands last night, and in amongst them, I switched on the VHF aircraft receiver, and at Moorabbin Airport, at round about 8 o'clock last night, Moorabbin Airport was down to 4 degrees then, so quite a chilly start to the day. Good to catch up with everybody. As I say, well, as you know, I've not been on 160 metres very much this week, so this is just a brief appearance to let you know everything is going okay, and still quite occupied with things other than radio. So I won't hold it, and I'll pass it round to you there, Herb, and I'll gradually catch up on the news there. VK3JO and the group, VK3WYN.
VK3ABS.
VK3ABS. Right. Good morning, Terry. Yes, time's getting on. So, look, have a say and put it back to me then, please. Go ahead, VK3JO, bye.
Yes, fine, Herb. Sorry I'm late, but we've been too cold to get out here earlier. I've got the sun shining on my feet through the door now, but I won't stay. It's getting late, as you say. And I thought I'd break in and say I'm here and hope everybody's okay there. So, and good morning to you there, Brian. All understood from you too. Okay, well that's all. I've got nothing further, and I've spoken to Jack EB there earlier this morning in the warmer climate than the workshop, that's for sure. Okay, we'll see you all later. All have a pleasant day, gentlemen.
and probably catch up with you on either Sunday or later on next week. This is VK3ABS signing out often to you, saying good morning to all our listeners and passing it by to VK3JO.
Oh, okay there, Jerry. VK3JO replying to the group. Think I'd better put in the... that should be better. I got right up to the microphone and cut the gain down so that you shouldn't be annoyed so much with that saw gain. Yes, right. Good morning here, Brian, and good morning, Jerry. Yes, good to hear you there, and note the reason for the late arrival. Ian followed me, 3ALZ. And he was another late arrival, but I was a bit late myself anyway. So good to hear him there. Okay, Ian, about the everything there. The doctor gave everything's okay, got new medication. So better today than you were yesterday. Heavy dew, yes, well, there was a light frost here. It wasn't a heavy frost. And I gauged that by the colour of the shingled roof on the opposite side of the road. I have seen it in overall white with the real dinkum frost, but it wasn't all over white, rather a mottled appearance. Okay, too, yes, the cricket's been a washout. Thanks for the suggestion there, 12BY7. Well, that has a miniature base tube. I've got some of those. So that sort of knocks my argument, but the miniature base tube might not stand the RF. The book says that the driving power for an 813 1.7 watts. So I don't know that we need go to anything producing a high power there. So it looks as though perhaps the combined high mu triode and power output pentode might do the job. So we'll think about that a bit anyway. Thanks for the suggestions anyway there, and certainly that's quite a good tube. And I've got a couple of 5763s or 5673, I think it is. No, 5763. Have I transposed a couple of numbers? I'm not sure. But I was looking through all the valves I'd got there to see what I could come up with for substitute there. Brian, the reason for all this is that the 813 rig has a stability problem. If the oscillator cuts out, we still get RF. I was trying it yesterday with the power meter in series with the dummy load, and with the power reading 100 watts full scale deflection on your little meter. Detune the oscillator to cut that out, and it drops down to 10 watts. So we're still getting too much output there with sort of self-oscillation. So it looks as though I might have to sort of redesign the whole thing or install some more shielding or something like that it's never had anyway. Right, let's see. I think from me, yes, went back to Jack there. And Jack, I think the main thing there is you're talking about FM reception on that Tandy set. Now, there's no advantage or no need to switch on the BFO to copy FM. That's not going to help. It will destroy it. So if that fine-tuning is designed for use with the BFO, there's no advantage in putting that on. You've just got to tune slightly either higher or lower than the carrier frequency, and depend on the slope of the IF selectivity curve. That's what I'm trying to think of. Okay, well, you've got to get new glasses and a handbook there for tubes. Yes, right. Well, I was looking through all the tubes I've got there. I haven't gone through all of them, but quite a number of them to see what might be the best one there. And Reg, yes, note the method I've coping with the hot feet, or cold feet rather, and so on. The walk, well, my walk yesterday afternoon probably started off with cold feet, but by golly, they were more comfortable when I got back home. So that was good. With the barometer, I'm reading 30.7. That's about the highest I've seen it for a time. Right, Don, yes, note your comments there about the filled building too, and so on. Washing, yes, oh well, I'm hoping this might get a better breath of air, wind, but this time of the year they don't really dry off, certainly not. So I'll probably have to bring them in an unfinished state, and depending on just how dry or whatever, my method of drying them off, if there's not a great deal of them, is to just put them on clothes horse frames underneath the ceiling fan and leave that going all night. A gentle draft from that seems to be enough, quite often anyway, depending on how wet they are. Okay, interesting about the scanning, etc. there, and that brings me around to Brian. So note your comments about the weather. Certainly we had a fog here. It wasn't a terrifically thick fog, but it didn't clear until about 1 o'clock. Before it started to clear. It didn't take long once it started. Note the report there, Moorabbin, 4 degrees, and glad your dad's business there's all okay. Jerry, you didn't really make any comment there. Thanks for popping up, but note your what's been happening there too, and good to hear you, so hope you can stick around, and I think I'd better put it over to Jack now, because I know he likes to leave, and it's a little bit after the 12 o'clock. So I'll listen through for final comments. I wish you all the best. Hope to catch you again. Those who can come up Sunday should be on, but otherwise I will have a nice weekend. And that it goes to our multitude of listeners too. VK3JO, concluding with the group, standing by for Jack VK3EB.
VK3BQM and the group VK3EB. And morning to Brian, VK3WYN, and Jerry, VK3ABS. Incidentally, Herb, my reading on the barometer is 30.8. 30.8, and the barometer only goes to 31, so that'll give you an idea. It's near enough to full scale. So it'll be interesting to see if it goes up any higher. Yes, I don't think I've got anything further to add. Reg, the catalogue comes out in October, according to Jerry. Comes out in October, so any catalogue you pick up now would be current and could be near enough to out of date. So that's the story there. Anyhow, I'll say good morning all round, and good morning to our shortwave listeners, and catch you either Sunday or Monday.
I think it's mine, Reg.
Yes, go ahead, Ian.
Okay, Reg here. A couple of things I wanted to comment on there. Anyway, good morning, Brian and Jerry there. Nice to see you both up there. Jerry's made it very, very short. Anyway, good morning to you. I'm glad things are going okay there, Brian. And glad you're able to pop up there. Yes, with that very high barometer, that's exceptionally high, isn't it? 30.7, 30.8 sort of figures that are getting really up. So I'll have a listen round if I can get organised. Just see if I can hear any 2 metre DX. I've still got the 2 metre long Yogi up there. Anyway, you've got a string of tubes there, Herb. The 5763 is a good tube. And virtually anything would work anyway on 160 metres, but some are better than others, of course. You should be able to work out something there. Just why that's oscillating is a big question, whether it's a shielding problem, a neutralisation problem, or it just is hard to say, you know. You just got to fiddle around, try things, I suppose, get rid of it. Yes, you certainly don't need the BFO on when you're copying FM. The best mode would be, I would have thought, would have been AM. There should be adequate slope on the AM IF strip to resolve FM. But, you know, if I was, you know, considering other things, another thing I would be slapping in an FM detector. They don't take up much space. Because I'd be using a receiver like that more as a test instrument than as a, you know, just a general purpose receiver. Because it's actively calibrated frequency-wise. Anyway, we'll try and get Tandy and have a look-see. Jack might have forced the price down there, perhaps, I don't know. Four degrees there, Brian, that's fairly nippy, isn't it? Not freezing, but not far off it. So, just how long this is going to go on to is a good, interesting question. The weekend coming up there. Might stop at it. Well, I don't think we're going to get any cricket, but if we do get any cricket, I might just stop up and listen to it. It's just a bit of a washout, really. Very disappointing. I think that's about the lot, gents. Anyway, it's well after 12, so we better not drag it out there. Of course, Monday I won't be able to make it, I don't think. Yes, I think the appointment's for midday, and I've got to go down to Moreland Road, so I won't be able to get on. It takes me about half an hour to get down there, so that would be right in the middle of the session, so it'll have to be Tuesday, I think, before I'm on again. Anyway, all have a good weekend, whatever there. VK3 Alpha Lima Zulu clear. Over to you, Reg.
Yes, thank you, Ian. I'll just make sure I'm not doubling. I don't know whether it is actually my turn or not. Right, well, I have noted with interest all that's been said. Good morning to you, Brian, should you still be listening, and Jerry. Good that you're both able to get up and make a brief appearance, even if it was only a brief appearance. Good to hear you. Know that everything's all right with you there. And Brian, that things are progressing is the main thing, isn't it? Right, all very interesting. I have nothing further to add here. I'm going to check the barometer when I go out because it'll be surprising to see how long it stays up high like that. It was up high sometime earlier in the week too, and I noticed it. Right, look forward to the next time, fellas. Most likely Sunday if I can make it now. If not, next Monday from BQM. And have enjoyed this morning's session there. whoever's to take it. Don did follow me. I don't know whether Don's still there. Seeing it's warmed up to 19 degrees in the glass house there, Don, you might be enjoying it. And I have stayed a little longer. But anyway, if there's a pause there and somebody, whoever wants to jump in. So this is VK3 BQM signing but listening briefly. Cheers.
Relay for 40 meters and 30 meters, and he does very well with it. So that's something to consider. They're easy to construct and relatively inexpensive, and fairly non-critical. So, well, Clive, the sun is getting up here fairly high in the sky now. It's about a half hour past sunrise, and I'm going to be going to breakfast with my wife and my daughter this morning, and so I probably should look around the window one last time, see what else is coming through, maybe make a few quick calls, and then pull the switch and go take my shower and get ready to go out with the ladies. So, very enjoyable talking with you, Clive, and I'm glad we had an opportunity to just rag you. This has been very nice. And working you with 5 watts is as much a thrill for me, I think, as it is for you. So, I'm going to say 73, and we'll be talking to you in the next few days, I'm sure. And I would like to stand by one last time, though, and let's see if Dale KCQA might be listening. Dale, are you around this morning? No, I don't hear him. He has a very bad chest cold, or we're starting to get one. I hope that isn't laying him up in bed today. So, 73, Clive, and we'll catch you here in the next few days, and thanks again. ZL1HZ, M7ML.
7ML, ZL1HZ, yeah, fine, thanks there, Mike, and all your comments there are duly noted and stored away for future reference. So, you have a nice breakfast there with the family, and we'll hear you around the next day or two and see how things are going. So, all the very best, 73 to you, and we'll catch you later. ZL1 Hotel Zulu is clear within 7ML.
Okay, Clive, well, thanks a lot, and I want to get W7LI on here again now that I've got my antennas going, and get a comparison with him, with you as well, and see if we've made any improvement there. So, we'll see you later. I'll see what I can find before I pull a big switch here. ZL1HZ, M7ML, good morning.
Good morning.
ZL3L for Charlie Lima. Do you copy at all, Mike? Over. Oh, roger, roger. ZL3 Alpha Charlie Lima. This is M7ML. You're still coming through about a 5 and 7, I believe. I'll look a little closer, over.
Okay, N7NL, ZL3 Alpha Charlie Lima.
You know, actually, I've just finished putting up a vertical. I've been listening to the propagation here has been very, very good. Very good. And I just thought, well, I'll check this thing out here. It's a 4-inch aluminium tubing. Around about 60 feet odd there, Mike. Yes, well, you're about a 5 and 9 here. Thanks, and I'll let you get away. N7NL, ZL3ACL. Yeah, is it Alpha Charlie Ocean or Alpha Charlie Lima, over? Alpha Charlie Lima, over. That's what I thought. Okay, ZL3 Alpha Charlie Lima, M7ML. I'm sure we have worked, but for some reason you're not showing up in my logbook. What's the name down there, over? Oh, sorry, the name's Ross. Romeo Oscar Sierra, over. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. It sounded like Tango Oscar Sierra, over. No, Romeo. For Romeo. Ross was the name, over. Oh, okay, Ross, very good. And thanks for the 5 and 9. You are 5 and 7. 57. So you're getting out very well, too. How much power are you running, Ross, over? Around about 150 watts. And we're using a single 60-foot vertical, over. Oh, okay, very good. Well, if you're 150 into the vertical is doing great.
No problem at all. I was working Clive a little earlier. He was running 5 watts. And it was really amazing. And here's Q5. So that was great. Well, we're running a 3-element quad right now, pointed your direction. And it's about 160 feet off the ground. It's a diamond quad. I'm using a common reflector with another 3-element quad pointed to Europe. And then we just got a lazy H antenna off yesterday that's pointed to Asia and the South American continent. So we're getting set up for the coming season, and looks like things are starting to work, and just been having a ball here, Ross. ZL3 ACL and 7ML.
Yeah, fine, Mike. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you, I was listening when Clive done that test with you, and he went down to about an S6 there, and of course when he wound his power back up again, he went to just over 10 dB over 9, so there was quite a considerable difference between his output. Anyway, Mike, I'll let you carry on there. Thanks very much for the contact, and lets me know that this vertical, I tell you, I don't need any tuner, nothing at all. I can work right across the whole band. I guess it must be because it's, well, it's a feed, and we've got one or two radials that we've just sort of put just under the dirt round here. Okay, catch you later. Have a good time there, Mike. I think it's, I'm not too sure if we've worked before or not, actually. I haven't got my logbook in front of me. I think it's N7NL that... I'm not too sure there. Anyway, 73's Mike, ZL3 ACL. Bye-bye.
Well, 3 watts, yeah, it's November 7 Mike Lima, November 7 Montana Lover. And, okay, very good, Rob. It's a little late here, but you're still coming through very nicely, and I think that it's going to be getting easier and easier for us to copy you, and it'll be getting harder and harder for you to copy us. But we are approaching equinox, and that'll be the best time for both of us, I guess. So, okay, well, 73, Ross, and we'll talk to you later then. I'll probably be on the next 2 mornings. ZL3 ACL, this is N7ML in Montana, QRZBX. Good morning.
Bye, Mike.
ZL3 ACL, ZL1HC.
ZL1HC, is it? ZL3 ACL, is that you, Clive, over?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I should say HZ to you. Just do it for the benefit of the W's. Yeah, haven't worked before. I just thought I'd say good day. I won't keep you. I think you're probably...
What did you done?
Well, I was doing that test run before I went in the configuration, and I changed it back to speaker. Hang on a second.
Roger.
It's been a lot of fun, Bill. It's just been amazing. I've got, the quad pointed at Europe, the quad pointed at you, and then the Lazy H pointed at JA and South America. And if I tune across the band with one of those, and then I switch to another antenna, tune across the band again, it sounds like a totally different band, over.
Listen, are you able to transmit on your Lazy H right now?
Roger, just a second. Now I'm back to you, over.
About 15 dB of difference, over.
Okay, let me go to Europe. And back to you.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, dear, oh dear. Do you want to patent that thing, over?
Yeah, okay, great. So, how are the other California stations this morning, Bill?
I don't know, I've only just got here about 15 minutes ago. Go ahead, Dave. N7ML, VK4 Juliet Tango.
Still 5 and 9, also, Dave, you're 5 and 9, and Bill is about 10 over 9, and like I say, it's 40
a little bit too sharp, Dave, that is.
Here, so it's just flat amazing. And I see that California is just starting to reach sunrise in San Diego, and they've still got about 15 minutes or so of sunrise before sunrise in Northern Cal. So anyway, it's sure been a lot of fun, and I've sure appreciated all the reports and patience that you guys have given me down under. It's very, very difficult, you know, and once I found the problem, though, things really started falling into place, Dave. Over. Okay, Dave, I paused because I wanted to see what the noise level is. The noise level is down to just under S5, and you're S9. You're just pounding in here really loud, and this is on FT1000DX meter, too. Who was the other station that said good morning, Mike?
Good morning, Dave. I hope you copied my low dipole there, but good signal, Mike.
Yeah, good morning, Stormy. Be interested to see how you're getting in. Your low dipole on saltwater is probably going to beat me out because you're right at sunrise, I think, or slightly before, aren't you?
Yeah, now we moved. We're at another QTH up on the hill. You copy down there, Dave?
Yeah, I copy, Stormy. You're the same signal, Stormy.
Okay, yeah, you're about 10 over 9 here, Dave, so good.
25 here.
So AJK is working good. There's a Lazy H. I had a couple AJKs up on this band. They work very well, Mike.
Yeah, this is the first time I've had a Lazy H up, and boy, so far I'm really impressed. Of course, I'm on the 3-element quad right now. Bill, how are you reading Stormy?
He's as strong as you are. He's 25.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. You're about 5 to 10 over also, so good to hear you. But we're on about a 30-foot high, 160-meter tuned feeder zap there, Bill. So we just have fun listening to big guns, over. Yeah, those big 400-watt amplifiers, right, Bill? Well, it's just like me. If I can't work them with legal power up here, I wait for Mother Nature to build a bigger antenna, Bill.
Yeah, I tried to that. It's such a pity that some...
Yeah, well, they always want to keep one notch up on somebody, Bill. Anyway, I'll go back to listening mode, just having my first cup of mud. Mike, you sound good. I'm proud of you there. And Dave and everybody else have a good one there. N7 Whiskey X-Ray.
Yeah, you've got another station in there too, another W7, so I'll let them carry on, and I'm going to go up and take my shower and take my wife and daughter out to breakfast this morning. So 7-3, gentlemen, thanks a lot for all the reports. VK4FW in the group, N7ML.
Really of what the events were like, just in the suburban areas and outskirts of London, and it was quite interesting to hear comments from her as well as the broadcast. Something that I did not hear mentioned on the airwaves here. It may have been, I might have missed it, but Diana's boyfriend there, Dodie, associated with Harrods, the department store, of course, in London. And Harrods, I believe, they were handing out to all the spectators and onlookers and well-wishers the refreshments and a bit of sustenance there, free of charge, which I thought was a nice touch. Let's see what else on the weekend. Oh, Father's Day, of course. That was rather good. Had a phone call from my daughter, who lives the other side of town, and also a visit from my son, and he bought a bag of electronic goodies with him, so that was rather good also, and nice to meet up there, of course. And the WIA broadcast that was on yesterday morning, following the 160 metre AM net session with Herb and Jerry, I think it was, wasn't it? There was not a big roll call yesterday morning there. And what else have we got? Oh, yesterday afternoon I paid a visit up to Jack VK3AJH is place up in Nunawading there. Jack and his XYL, of course, are in the midst of packing all the possessions into cardboard boxes and getting ready for the big move. And in the backyard there was this mountain of bits and pieces which were destined for the bin. So anyway, Jack said to me, have a look through there, Brian. I didn't need much encouragement, of course, so got quite a few bits and pieces out of there, especially very handy metalwork. Jack presented me with a nice 6-element beam for 2 metres, and complete with the rotator. Those of you who've visited, and I've got the beam around at my place, but I've yet to pick up the rotator. That'll be a job for 2 or 3 strong people. So I've got a couple of my forthcoming visitors, such as Ross and Peter, expecting them down this way in the next week with a trailer, and I might be able to rope them in to giving me a hand to move the rotator. Quite an ingenious mechanism. That's enough from me at this stage, so Jack, I'll pass it round to you with a pause. VK3EB and the group VK3WYN.
VK3BQM and the group VK3EB. Yes, fine all round. All good signals this morning. Strength-wise, Reg 20/9, Herb 15/9, and Brian's 10/9. All the usual signals, not much variation there. Okay, Reg, on the walk in town yesterday. Yes, well, at least you're fit enough to walk for 25 minutes. That was good. I just stick to the routes that I know now to make sure that I can get around successfully. I have been wearing my pedometer a bit just to get a check on the distances again, but I did about 1¼ kilometres yesterday and about a kilometre today, so that was enough as far as I was concerned. A friend of mine's just bought a pedometer, as a matter of fact, and I rang him up on Saturday morning, I think, to ask him how it was going, really to find out whether he knew how to calibrate it and so on. But it turns out he couldn't get the lid open. So I don't know what he was trying to do. He must have been trying to, he apparently hadn't looked where the hinge was and one thing and the other, and the whole thing was a shambles. So he was taking it back to Tandy to get the fellow to show him how to open the box. But I haven't heard from him since, so I don't know how he's got on. But I may hear later in the day. He's gone to town today, but when he gets home about 4 o'clock or 4:30, I might hear from him and then. So we'll see how we go. He's been going to get one for years, and then he was going to get one up at Broadbeach, and he forgot all about it. And I don't think his memory's so good now. His memory's, getting poor. He was never mechanically minded. He'd be able to put the cap on a biro. Okay, Reg, I'm going to the bush next week. And I don't think you need to take a compass with you. You should know it fairly well by now. I've got a compass on the table here, which I bought when I was in London. I used to get bush there because what with being taught at school to look to the north, you know, for the sun, getting a direction that way. In England, of course, in London, you look to the south. But when you say you look to the south, that's all right, but the sun is so much overhead in the middle of summer that you can't tell which way you're looking, sort of thing. So I bought a compass. And I used to wear that round my neck, and I used to use that with the map there to navigate around the streets. I think I told you that the radio shops in London, down the end there, that there were 2 or 3 radio shops in the one street. It was only a short street with a bend in it. And it's somewhere near Coventry Street down the bottom there. And there were a couple of brothels in the same street, and I thought that was rather poor, because to go to the radio shops you had to go past the brothels, and I thought that was a bit embarrassing at the time. I don't know that it wouldn't worry me now, but it may have worried me then. Okay, Herb, on the watching the TV there on Saturday. Yes, well, I think everyone did that. Just excuse me a second. Now. I was just speaking to the XYL for a second. Okay, on the relay, Reg, for the super hit there's to, I presume, mute it when you go on transmit. So that's good. And okay, I'm getting a crow sorted out too, Herb. Very good indeed. The SIG gen you made up, Brian, might be the same as mine, which I think I made up from Electronics Australia also. And by throwing a switch there, you raise it an octave, I think. An octave. And if yours does that too, it's the same circuitry. Mine worked okay. I only used it once, and it's gone into stock in the black hole somewhere, I think. So that's the story there. Oh, I didn't answer your question, Brian. No, I haven't charged the battery. I've just used it to run a fan that I bought, which drew about 700 milliamps or something, and I connected that up and it ran the fan okay. That's all I've done so far. So now I've got the plug, I'll proceed on. And actually I was looking for a couple of heavy wires, flexible, for the positive and negative. So I'll have to get onto that perhaps later this week. So I've got some very heavy wires, but I don't think they need to be that heavy. As long as I'll take an amp or two, that's the main thing. Okay, I'm ringing a friend in London, that's good. I rang my sister yesterday, but I didn't get her, so I'll give her a try tonight. I'm not sure whether she's away somewhere or not. But that's only New South Wales, that's not in London. Okay, well, I think that covers me fairly well. I can tell you what we're having for lunch. We're having sausage rolls. They're big ones. They come in a plastic wrapping, cellophane or something like that. And when you eat one of those, it's a meal in a moment. You've pretty well had the fill. You've had your fill when you eat one of these sausage rolls. They're big, and meaty, and actually they're very nice too. So I'm having one of those for lunch and a bread roll, so assuming I can still leave the table when I've had all that. So that's the story there. Okay, Reg, it's over to you. I think I answered your comments there. The relay and what have you. I haven't looked for that box of relays I've got. PMG type they are, about 3.5 inches long. You know the type, I think. But they're all brand new, so that's the main asset in relation to them. So over to you, VK3BQM to take it, VK3EB.
VK3AP on frequency.
Yes, good morning, Al. Would you like to have a say and then put it across to me? This is VK3BQM.
Yes, thanks, Reg. Yes, I've just come into the radio room. I've had the... Oop. I knocked the dial. I'm sorry about the frequency change. Yes, I haven't been listening for long. We've got the concreting men here and everything, and they're working on the front porch. And my brother-in-law is here too, and I thought I'd just get a chance to say a word or two. I'm very interested to hear your London visit, Jack. That's quite good. I haven't been to London. Haven't been outside of Australia really, but who knows, we might get there someday. And you were talking something about heavy wire too from a power supply. I'm not sure what that is, but don't make the mistake I made. This constant car battery charging, I thought, well, why have you got to go to all this trouble of plugging it in and getting extension lead and everything? Wouldn't it be easier to have it in such a way that the charger and that all remained inside, and all I had to do was run out a lead to the car battery? Well, that was all right in theory, but in practice it was a dismal failure because the battery, the leads were long enough to include ohmic resistance in them, and the project fell through. I couldn't get anywhere with it. I normally charge about 2 amps, and I think it was about 400 mils was about the most I could rustle up from the charger. That was due to the light leads that I had. Anyhow, I've abandoned the idea, went back to the old mains operation again. And okay about the sausage rolls for lunch, well that's a good thing. Matter of fact, we went to a birthday party yesterday. One of the grandnephews or grandnieces had a birthday, and there were sausage rolls and party pies and everything there, so I can quite appreciate it. Well, I won't hold this too long because I'm not sure of what it's all about, so I'll put it over to you now, Reg, and you can carry on. I'm sorry I'm late, but these things happen. VK3BQM, VK3AP.
Yes, thanks, Al. Very good to have you able to come up there. And note the concreting happening at the moment. Also your battery charging with light cables not working out there. It's something I had to pay attention to when I put the alarm system in the car. I wanted to have a separate battery. When I say wanted to, I installed a separate battery for the alarm, but I wanted to charge it through the main charging system of the car, but on the same behalf I didn't want the alarm battery that doesn't have the starter motor load put on it. I didn't want it getting overcharged because the charging system would have to make up for the amount of current that was drawn by the starter motor on the main car's battery. So there's quite a bit of fiddling around there to get that right. We had 7 millimetres of rain yesterday, or to 9 o'clock this morning, or 8:45, which is 28 points of rain, just over 1/4 of an inch. Okay, with Jack and Jerry and yourself on 2 metres this morning, Herb, and watching the funeral, and yes, those guards certainly needed to be fit, and walking all that distance in non-swinging your arms in a restricted form of walk, that is not easy as it perhaps looks. with your hands held hard beside you, your arms straight down beside you, etc. there. Tummy upset Friday. Good that you got over that. Okay, on the display crow unit there with the missing capacitor and bypass capacitor, and but now it's working okay, that's good. Listen with interest to the Eastern Freeway reference there, Herb, but it certainly does make a difference. Our Toorak Road exit, and then the further extension being put on that brought traffic out down the Chadstone area and things like that. It certainly makes one build-up of traffic, there's no doubt about it. My aerial here has been quite stable of late. Not so affected. It takes a good blow to affect it, whatever it is that becomes a bit intermittent on receive. No such Father's Day presents here, Brian. No extra rigs, no extra this, or even that. You're going to show me a relay type that you've got there. Yep, interested. Okay, I'm working near that Diamaroo station too, whatever it is there. I've not used the ring rail at all in there. I haven't a clue what's where with it. I have dropped a shirl in several times to the Latrobe entrance of Diamaroo, and I've dropped her there and then come home and been in time to get on here at 11 o'clock sort of thing when she's been in for a day's shopping, but she finds her way home on the tram then. Catches a tram down Elizabeth Street and changes at Flinders Street or whatever it is there. Listened with interest to the solid state audio Jenny, ex-Alan Noble, and phoning your friend in England. Be interesting. And what actually struck me was the immense amount of crowds and that had been there for hours and hours, and I was thinking to myself, golly, what do they do for the toilet situation when they're packed 20 deep in a lot of places there? You can't just leave your spot and go probably walking around looking for a toilet that'd have queues miles long. It was a problem that entered my mind. I couldn't get it out for a while. I thought, what the blazes would you do? So many people. And okay, on the further collection from AJH too there, Brian, very good. Thanks for the signal reports, Jack. All stations are normal here. And that friend with the pedometer dismantling problem. Actually, I got a digital calendar clock some time ago now from that place that you'd mentioned, and if you didn't have the box and the instruction sheet to tell you how to pull it apart, it would be quite a problem, because it's I haven't put batteries in it for years, and I have to the other day sort of thing, and It's got a single battery in it, and I went to pull it apart, and I thought to myself, golly, I don't remember what gives what with this. I've got an idea one of the ends comes off, and do you think I could get the end off? And eventually I thought to myself, well, somewhere I've got paperwork on this. I won't take the chance of wrecking it. And I looked through and found the paperwork, and surely enough, one end does come off it, but and then the whole clock is an insert that slides out of the case, and you've got the case with one end off it, and the clock itself is completely separate once you get it apart. But you could actually break it trying to get into it, because it was that stiff and such a solid click on the way it was assembled without screws or anything like that, quite pleased to find the instructions of it instead of taking the chance of busting it. Listen with interest too about your reference to using the sun as a compass when in England, of course, looking south instead of looking to the north here, which is quite a thing. And I was just thinking to myself, how much sun do you get in England? I didn't think they had that much to be able to see it too. I have a good compass that Karen Schill's daughter brought us, that's in the car and kept in the car all the time. We get out, go play walkabout anywhere, and we're not sure of herself. I always grab hold of that. It's a very good one. It's used by the Swiss Army, or was manufactured for that type of thing, used worldwide. And okay, Jack with the sausage rolls. Right, for me it goes across to you there again, Herb. I'll say cheers in case I don't get a chance to return, but I will be listening until such time as I get the blurb from the car horn to be let shrill in. VK3 JO to take it, VK3 BQM.
Break, Herb. Reg, are you still there, Reg? Over.
Yes, I will be listening right out. Go, Brian.
Oh, Reg, just in case you were going before I caught up with you, the DOS book, any ideas if you want to pick that up, or will that be a bit too busy for you at this stage? Over.
Right at the moment, I'm doing a major service on the car, and that's taking a little bit of time, or, complete gearbox oil change, glycol change in the radiator system, the brakes themselves, the hydraulics, everything. I'm going right through the car, and I'll be fairly busy. If there's no panic on your behalf, I won't be worried about it for a couple of days, but I would by all means give you a call on the phone, and if it wasn't available to suit you, then, there's no panic on it, Brian, because I'll be up and down to Kangaroo Ground through the days, which will sometimes mean if I go in the morning, I'll miss the morning session here, but would be home later on in the day, of course. So anyway, leave it at that. Okay, Brian, VK3WYN, VK3BQM.
Yes, fine, Reg, all understood. Yep, that's fine. No rush from this end, so we'll just play it by ear. Very good there. Herb, you take it.
Thanks, Brian.
VK3JO, VK3WYN and the group listening.
Would seem like Herb's got a phone call.
Yes, look, well, I'll just pop in here. Al, good morning to you, VK3AP. And where are we in the order of things? Herb would follow Reg there, Al. And then I was following Herb, so I'll just pop in there and say a couple of words. I'll check first of all I'm not doubling. Yes, all clear there. And now, let me see. Who followed who? Jack, you came on after me there the second time round. note the pedometer and the kilometres, etc. And the reason I mentioned about the battery pack there, Jack, I'm not sure if the one I gave you has got the writing on the wrapper on that pack, the do's and do nots, and being lead acid cells, of course, it is recommended they be charged around about every 6 months, even if you're not using them, and of course recharge after you have used them if they're approaching the discharged state. So that was the reason I mentioned that there, Jack, even if you can get it onto a trickle charge, just to avoid it standing in the discharged state, and getting the start of the plate sulfation there, which can restrict the effectiveness of the cell. So anyway, just a thought there. You'll be able to do that, no doubt, when you've got time. And Al, nice to hear you there. Hope you had a nice Father's Day. Note you've got the concreters there and your brother-in-law also. Yeah, on the net, it's a unit that I've lent to Herb there on occasions, and he's using that at the moment for checking out his cathode ray oscilloscope. And the audio oscillator, it's solid state, and it was subject of an article, construction article, in EA back in 1981, and quite a neat little unit, and it covers 15 hertz up to 150 kilohertz in 4 switched ranges, and quite an accurate level of output attenuation there in 10 dB steps, and it will give an output from 3 volts down to 3 millivolts in about half a dozen switched steps. So it's quite a handy little instrument there. So I just mentioned for those of you who may not have either seen the article or got a similar type of unit there. Let me see now, what else was there? Al, some of the things I did mention before on my first over. It was interesting watching the Princess Diana service and the celebrations, I would call them, the celebrations of her life and achievements and her times there from the public, and it was certainly a spectacle, wasn't it? I'm sure if she was able, she would say that she appreciates the thoughts there. And Father's Day, of course, there, Al, which I also mentioned earlier, that was quite nice. I had a phone call from my daughter and also a visit from my son on the Saturday, so that was quite enjoyable there. And let me see, what's the time? Well, we're nearly to the bewitching hour there, so Jack, I'll pass it back to you, and you might like to give Herb a call when you've said your cheerios, Jack. VK3EB and the group VK3WYN.
Thanks, Brian. VK3B just returning for final and saying good morning all round. Good morning to our shortwave listeners. Hope you all have a pleasant day. I will not be on for the next 2 days. I'll be in hospital, and I should return theoretically on Thursday, so I'll be right to be on Thursday. So have a good day and catch up with you then. And over to VK3JO. I think Herb's home help's arrived. So VK3JO and the group. VK3B is now off and clear. You take it, Reg, if Herb doesn't return.
Yes, I'm just wondering, Herb's probably tied up, as you say. I had signed, so we'll see if Al's got anything further there. He may be involved with the concreters. And yes, Brian, any time you're over this way, if you particularly have to go out of your way, perhaps a phone call would make sure of my presence. But I I will endeavour to get over as soon as I'm free here, but as I say, I've got quite a fair bit on my plate, and unfortunately it'll keep me off here a few other days too, so between now and, and when I can get up is just, it'll be day-by-day considerations. Cheers again from VK3BQM. If you're available there, Al. If not, you might have some further comment, Brian.
Yes, thanks, Reg. No, the concreters have gone. They were going to start the job, but the weather looked too inclement at the moment, so I think they made the date for tomorrow. My brother-in-law did a bit of work on the bricks and so forth, and you want to see the front porch. It just looks as though an atom bomb has dropped on it, but it's coming along. And I must mention, Brian, about the charging of lead-acid batteries. Yes, that's a particular, I won't say it's a hobby, but it's something like a hobby, because I have to keep the car battery fully charged most of the time in the car, and it involves checking specific gravities and all that sort of thing. So I don't like leaving them in an uncharged state either, because they can sulfate very quickly and take about 50% of your ampere hours away. So I like to keep it charged as soon as possible. I don't know what that word is. I've got something there, but I'll come to it later. Okay, Reg, about the battery in the clock or something you had there. Yes, I've got a battery-operated clock here too, and I think it has about 10 different time zones, which you just press buttons and up it comes. And you know, I got that when I left work, and I've plugged it in, but the trouble is you just disturb the main for a second or two, and you've got to start all over again and program the whole lot all over again. So I haven't gone too deeply into it, but we'll get it out someday, believe you me. And okay, about the service on the car too. Yes, well, I don't service my car as much as I should, but it's got one of these little trick oil change plugs in it, which you've got to have a special spanner to get to it, and you've got to untake off the stone guard underneath, and that can be quite troublesome. So we take it down to the man, and just about a month ago, we had the service done to the car, and what did he do? Oh yes, he put a new master cylinder in for the brakes, because we noticed the red light flashing on the front panel. That's all fixed up now, so we have to wait now till next time. Okay, Brian, about the audio oscillator. Yes, I think I have that the circuit there, and just to so I heard a bit of disturbance going on. Yes, so that's the one with the R53 thermistor in, and 150 kilohertz, and I think I tried to get mine up to a higher value again by putting an extra capacitor and resistor in, but I haven't had it in use for a long time, but it was very, very good. It was absolutely rock steady up to 100 kc without any trouble at all. It went up from 15 right through, and I calibrated it while I was at work, made sure it was all right, and that's the best I can do to it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which, it uses the old germanium transistors, and that you have to be very careful of those that you didn't overload them or something like that. And okay, Jack, about your stay in hospital for 2 days, yes, we understand that, and we trust everything will be okay. Well, I haven't got very much more now, so I'll put it back to Herb if he is available, or it'll be over to you, Brian. So VK3JO, VK3AP, and group listening.
VK3AP and no group, VK3WYN returning. Yes, looks like Herb's tied up there. And trying there, Al. Note that Jack's signed, of course, and Reg likewise. So, it's interesting, Al, about the lead-acid batteries, isn't it? The particular battery that I was talking about regarding Jack is a battery pack I gave him a while back, and it consists of 6 D-size lead-acid cells. And these battery packs are ex-medical equipment from hospitals, and they're replaced on a regular basis, even though they're still operational, especially for intermittent use, such as possibly powering up a handheld or something like that. So they're quite good units, and they're all sealed in a pack, and they do have the warnings on the outside, of course, like not putting them in the fire and all those obvious things. Well, I suppose they're obvious to us, Al, but I suppose some people with no electrical knowledge, they wouldn't know about that sort of thing. And of course, in the cautions there, they do have the reminders to recharge as soon as possible after you've used the battery pack, and also to recharge for at least 24 hours, they recommend, every 6 months, just to keep them topped up. So, and the same idea, of course, with the car battery, but more frequently there. Yes, the circuit for the audio oscillator, it has that thermistor in that you mentioned. They give that interesting little delay effect when you change frequency, don't they, with that thermistor in circuit. And takes just a fraction of a second to settle down to the exact frequency that you've dialed up on the analog dial there. And I like this particular unit because they use very easily obtainable parts. For example, as you would know there, Al, I think the BC 549s there, and similar, and an IC or so, and a handful of other readily available components. So they're quite a nice unit there. When I acquired this unit, it was all built up, of course, but it wasn't working. And I did track that down to just one faulty BC 549, which was easy enough to replace. And since then it's been operating rather well. Find it quite a handy unit there. And yes, I can imagine the porch there at the front of the house, Al, like a demolition site. You haven't got the sign there, have you? Whelan the Wrecker was here. So it'll be nice when that's all finished. And we'll all come around for the grand opening, Al. How's that for a great idea? I'll make this a final. Nice to catch up with you. And leave a pause in case Herb does have time to come back. I won't come back unless called. Cheers, Al, and good afternoon to listeners. VK3AP, VK3WYN.
Yes, thanks, Brian. I don't know whether you're there or not, Herb, but if you are, well, now's your chance. Otherwise, it goes back to me. So VK3JO to transmit with a group listening. This is VK3AP. No, it doesn't look like it. So let's hope Herb's okay. And okay about that audio oscillator you have there, Brian, too. Yes, well, certainly more modern transistors. Mine are the old 2N 403, I think, or something like that, and all germanium. And I put a little extension of the circuit which made a square wave possible, And I've had all these, but I haven't used the oscillator for years. It's sitting under a bench there looking at me. So I might trot it out someday and just find out what gives. Well, I won't hold this any longer now. I think it's time I signed. I don't think I'll be available tomorrow. It all depends on what these contracting blokes are doing, the concreting blokes. So I'll have to leave it at that at the moment. But I'm got in today while I could, and trust that everything will be okay. And for all the interested people, we watched the Princess Di telecast from Channel 9, where else, and we were absolutely amazed that I think it ran for about 4.5 hours at least, and there were several repeats of course. Elton John performed 3 or 4 times to my knowledge, and all the others. But I thought it was a very interesting telecast and beautifully done. There was hardly a camera that wasn't in the right place. I think from what I've heard, they had about 100 cameras on the job, so I don't know. It was very well done anyway, and of course I watched it on Channel 9. Where else? But I was absolutely astonished that 4.5 hours of programming could go through not one single commercial. Anyway, that's beside the point. Well, I'll say cheers to all, and hope to see you again. And I don't know whether you're there, Herb, but we'll take a listen for you and leave it at that. So VK3AP is now signing clear with the group and saying cheerio. Cheers, everyone.
Nobody else heard of this thing, but cheers to you. Catch you later on. VK3AP, VK3WYN, clear and closing. Cheers to all who are
there. VK3JO standing by.
Good morning, Herb. You did double with somebody else, and both signals were fairly strong, and although it didn't interrupt anything you were saying, but the police know everything is all right, and I'm busy. I was going to say up to my neck in concrete at the moment, but it hasn't. It's not as bad as all that. It's only the front porch, and it's very nice to hear from you again. And that's about all I've got now. So I'll put it over to you, and then you can find out what the other station was doing. I couldn't identify the other station, but not because the signal was too weak. It was just this heterodyne was taking place all the time. Anyway, all the best again, and hope to see you next time. So VK3JO to transmit with the group listening, VK3AP.
Oh, I left a pause in case the other station should have come up. Sorry about all that. Yes, my son had arrived here, and of course we've been discussing this, that, and the other. You want to say hello to Al?
Good morning, Al.
And the rest of the group?
Yeah, good morning, the rest of the group. I thought there was only nuts in this wireless game. Apparently there's a lot floating around. I've always said that there's a heap of junk, but still that's not my field, that's your field, and you enjoy it. So therefore I hope that you'll enjoy it for a long time to come.
Well, there we are. That's words from Neville, who kept me away from the group there since, what was it, about 10 to when you arrived? Anyway, never mind. We don't see all that much of him, but he couldn't get along yesterday. I guess his own family.
Yes, and you got to put your priorities right. I ended up at Flinders playing golf before I saw my grandchildren. They came second, but still that's the way life goes. As I say, get your priorities right and you'll make it.
Okay, well anyway, there we are. So that's why I missed out on, but noted all the other comments there, and all very interesting, and thanks you very much. So we'll put it back, and better let pause, Al, and see who that other station that I doubled with was on VK3JO. Standing by.
VK3JO and VK3AP, VK3WYN was that other station there, Herb. Good afternoon to Neville there. I think we have met in person there and at Herb's place. And I don't know about this priority of golf and whatnot there. I think I'd put the ham radio on the top of the list there, Neville. Al, round to you. VK3AP to take it for the group VK3WYN.
Yes, thanks, Brian. I was a bit quick, then I'll just check. Yes, that's okay. I just want to make sure there's no doubling or anything like that. And good morning, Neville. I don't think we've met in person, but your voice came over quite well and seems quite good. And okay about the golf too. Well, it's not a game I've taken very seriously, but I have played it. I played it when I was up at Warburton with the XYL many, many years ago, and it's quite an interesting game, and it's non-combatant sport. That's what I like about it. And you don't have any clash between the players, and everyone goes separately on their job. And I don't think there's much more now, so that's very good to know that you're in good hands with Herb and so forth. I don't think there's anything else now, so I'll put it over to Herb. I think he'll be next in line, and then I'll be QRT. So you take it, Herb, and I should mention that the Old Timers lunch is quite okay. I've sent the application away quite some time ago, but you don't usually tell whether they've accepted it or not, or that it got there until the arrival of the Eula Street place. And I'm pleased to know that's at the same place as last time, so that'll be good. Right, well, you take it, and I think they'll sign on this over and see you all again. And thanks very much for putting up with this interrupted schedule I have at the moment. But I don't know what's happening to the weather. Oh, it's fairly blue sky at the moment. I reckon it's going to be fine for the next 2 or 3 days, so with a bit of luck we might get the work done. Anyhow, all the best, and we'll see you next time round. So VK3JO to transmit with the group listening. This is VK3AP now signing clear.
Yes, okay there, Al. And thanks for all that. Now, VK3JO replying to the group. And you gave me a reminder there, Al, about the Old Timers luncheon. And I note the date there was the 11th. That was the date by which we've got to get our notifying papers back. And I've been withholding mine because, Brian, I'm wondering whether you'd be available for the friend that one is permitted to take. So I'm wondering if you've got any idea of whether it's a certainty or not. So perhaps if you could answer that one before we sign off. VK3WYN. Cheers there, Al. We'll catch you later. I should be on tomorrow as usual. Don't know any reason why not at this stage. VK3WYN with VK3AP, VK3JO standing by.
VK3JO, VK3WYN. Yes, fine there, Herb. And no, I'll have to pass up the Old Timers this year, as I did last year, I think you might recall. So, but I'll try again next year. I thoroughly enjoyed that visit, I think, which was a couple of years back. That was most enjoyable there, including the guest speaker at the time, which I think was to do with Woomera, wasn't it? And the rocket range there in earlier years. So unfortunately, have to give that a miss this time, Herb. And I was going to let you know about that anyway. Okay, there. Good afternoon to you there, Neville. Again, I'll say cheerio to you and to you, Herb, and also to Al. I was just in the point of signing and saying cheers to Al when I think we doubled there a couple of overs back, Herb. That was all. So catch you all later on. VK3JO, you take it there, if Al has signed. VK3WYN signing.
Yes, okay there, Brian. Thanks very much for that. Okay, well, I can get my my form in the post now and notify them of my intention to go along there.
So it'll be the same, a repeat of last year. And thanks, Al, for the offer of a lift there. So that's great. And it sounds a most interesting talk, this black box. And actually hear it from the fellow who's responsible for it in the first place is quite interesting. So hopefully we'll be able to take it all in. Okay, I better say cheers then and catch you all tomorrow. All have a nice day. That includes our shortwave listeners too. VK3JO, concluding with the group and closing.
Okay, Herb, I'll just put a few extra words in. Yes, the black box speaker, it sounds a very interesting program, and I think it'll be very interesting indeed. And I don't think there's much more we can say about that. The transport arrangements will be the same as last time, and seeing it's at the same place, it shouldn't present any great worries. But we'll see you again, and hope everything's okay. So VK3JO, VK3AP now clear. And cheers, Brian, as well.
Okay there, Al. Catch you later, VK3JO closing.
To assist her work. But Professor Pittman found that while this was totally unprofessional, it was not appropriate to lay a case for formal misconduct, since it had no impact on the acknowledgement of Dr. Kareen's work. QUT has demanded an apology from the ABC for the errors contained in that programme. The trouble is that the Pittman report has not identified any. The differences are over the interpretation of the facts. And it's worth picking over that report in a bit more detail to examine how Professor Pittman has concluded what he has. If you really wanted to nitpick, you could start by wondering about the language. He describes Professor Dale's credentials at some length, yet doesn't mention Dr. Kareen's PhD from Cambridge, and is fairly general about her time at Princeton. But there are more concrete assertions throughout the report which go to the heart of Dr. Kareen's claim.